Good evening and welcome to the latest edition of Shooting Straight with me, Voice of the Forge. Tonight is the 10th one of these that I have recorded, and as such I wanted to step away from a lot of the hashtags and news stories which a lot of people could say are knee-jerk reactions and reactionary videos, and I want to pause and look briefly at a couple of things. One of them is the reason why I feel the need to add my voice to the growing criticisms of various cultural formations, and another thing that I want to look at is the way in which we define ourselves in terms of identities, in terms of conventions, in terms of the language that we use. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I'm hoping that it doesn't run as long as the last one and that I will be able to keep it to the 20 minutes, and I therefore hope that you will bear with me. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the very nature of the fact that we all have individual agency and individual capacity, and the only way that I can boil this down into something really simple is to imagine a game where everyone is given a stick of the same length, let's say 4 foot, and we put a bit of tape around the handle and we say the only safe part of this stick to handle is the taped part. Everybody gets 1 life. If you are hit with a stick, it deals 1 life's worth of damage. And you all start completely separate from everybody else. You set out rules from where you can hit safely and for exactly how hard that 1 hit has to be to count. And you say, everybody, game on, this is the game. And straight away what you'll realise is that you'll have the odd person that will hit one person and get hit in return, and they're both out of the game. They've both taken 1 point of damage. And quite quickly you will have someone who will take out 2 or 3 people before themselves are taken out. Now, why is it that they've been able to get more points than anybody else? Why is it that they've been able to turn around and go, right, you're dead, I'm not, somebody else is dead, I'm not, third person's dead, I'm not, oh look, someone's got me. And it's quite categorically this, that when you give everyone an equal opportunity and a fair set of rules, such as with this stick game as it illustrates, it doesn't matter how much you gerrymander the rules to try and make sure that everyone will only ever get 1 point before themselves lose the game. You will find that certain people have a natural aptitude and they will be able to take on maybe 2 or 3 people without being killed, or they will be sneaky enough to be able to get behind people so they will get kills before the other person can react. Or you'll just find that other people will be able to knock sticks from hands. They will be able to do all kinds of things that are not necessarily within the rule set, but gives them an advantage, whether through physical aptitude, whether mental aptitude, or some other reason. Dexterity, for example, strength, the ability to think quicker, the ability to run quicker. And this is where culture falls down when it comes to things like the social justice warrior, where they want everyone to be equal and no one to be the same, no one to have any kind of advantage. And they cry foul when somebody with much more of a natural talent in a certain area wins. It is something that we have seen in the British school far more than I believe in the US, because the US still has the scholarship programs for American football, for baseball, for sports, we have seen in Britain the wholesale reduction of playing fields. We have seen the competitiveness of boys in feminised schools being undermined, because the gold standard for behaviour in schools now is girls, and boys, as Christina Hoff Sommers has rightly said in her video, The War Won Boys, they are seen as defective girls. And this is why I have this thought experiment with the sticks, because it doesn't matter if you give them to girls or boys. There'll be some girls that excel, and there'll be some boys that excel. And if you were to put them together so that you had the excelling boys and the excelling girls, you would probably find that there would be slightly more of the excelling boys, but you'd find that the excelling girls more than held their own in the same media. They would be able to hold their own. It wouldn't be a gender-driven narrative. It would just be the fact that you'd probably have 5 boys out of 10 that were really good, and maybe 3 girls out of 10 that were really good. But if you put all those boys and all those girls together, you'd probably find that in the shakedown they would probably be a similar 50-50% split, because you're talking about natural aptitudes that these individuals are sharing, and it's the individuals which are showing the aptitude and not one gender over another. And this is something that I find quite disturbing when people say, oh, girls shouldn't do this and girls shouldn't do that. Now, in the 1970s, Lego actually had a marketing campaign which showed that Lego was for both boys and girls. And yet it's something that we're seeing increasingly familiar with, is shops actually segregating toys by girl aisles and boy aisles, girls section for games, boys section for games and toys. And it's something that is something that has crept back into culture and doesn't necessarily need to be there. Now, with the stick game, it's a thought exercise, and it shows that it doesn't matter how much you try to rig the rules to try and make everything fair for everybody, you will get people who succeed. And we see something similar in another sport, and one which is worth billions worldwide, and that is the Grand Prix. And why is that similar? Well, take it this way. If you have any one company which manages to get a runaway design in a season, they change the rules so that design is no longer allowed. You have various tyre types with weaknesses and strengths. You have tyre strategies whereby you pit in and change these tyres over the course of a Grand Prix race. You have various rules with regard to what they call KERS and the way in which you can use an extra burst of speed at certain parts of the lap to enable overtaking and this, that and the other. But when you boil a lot of these changes down, it would be like taking a group of athletes like Usain Bolt and others, and handicapping Usain Bolt by saying that he'd only have a trainer on one foot, or the trainers that he has to wear are 3 sizes too small, so that he is effectively hobbled from running as fast as he is capable to try and bring him in line with the other racers. And this is part of a huge cultural trend that we have, where it's seen almost bad to be a winner. If you excel in a particular job, you may get bonuses, and now the jobs where you're likely to have the people that would excel, we're now seeing a massive backlash against people that can earn bonuses because they're destroying the economy. It's all very much a case of losers trying to bring winners down, or trying to gerrymander the playing field to such a point where you can't have winners or losers. And this is something that I think is important to Gamergate. It's something which isn't commented on because it's behind the scenes. And what it is effectively saying is you can't have elitism in games, because you can't have games that take skill, because that then means that people who don't have any skill can't compete. It means that Call of Duty, the fighting game community, and all these that have managed to gain strategy through the use of learning the controller, learning how quickly it responds, learning what the different button presses at certain times. Where you can get combos, break combos, blocks, where you know which hitboxes at which angle, where you can counter attack in the middle of a combo attack. All these different things which rely on learning the game and learning the ins and outs and the specificity of it, just like with the stick game, but in a virtual format. These people want to take that away. They don't want to have to invest the time in order to be able to play the game well. They just cry foul because they pick up the game and they aren't instantly as good as the best player. Now, this isn't a gender-driven thing. This is something that is derived solely from a specific set of people who are not necessarily saying that this is a bad thing for women or a bad thing for men. What they're trying to do is water down and take away the skill element full stop, because it's elitist. And there was someone who posted a whole great list of Twitter feeds talking about elitism and how it's a bad thing. But how is it elitist to hone your skills to be the best that you can? If you're a doctor, we don't say that it's bad. If you strive to be the top surgeon or the top pathologist or the top person when it comes to being able to look at infectious diseases like Ebola and be able to determine quite quickly how fast an outbreak might spread, where you need to put in the zones and everything else, because that's seen to be a common good. But it's that very nature of the individual that wants to excel that you find in people who play games, you find people who make videos like the one I'm doing here. It's the very nature of people that they want to seek to differentiate themselves from others. It's not enough for them to say, I'm a doctor, I am a banker, I'm a police officer. They want to be the best that they can possibly be, which means that they take the time and put in extra effort into learning materials, into keeping up to date with surgical practices or changes in the law, where you look at the way in which the code might change between, say, Super Smash Bros. Melee and Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It is all part and parcel of the same individual character trait, whereby we seek to be good at what we do and the best that we can possibly be. And yet, this is seen to be a bad thing. And this seen to be a bad thing seems to come from one set of people, and it is the same people that we see trying to whitewash the Not Your Shield hashtag in Gamergate, saying that everybody involved in Gamergate is a straight or cis, which is a term I despise, by the way, straight white men who live in their mother's basements, who don't go out to work, who have no skills, and who don't do anything of value to society, and who basically should kill themselves. That is the overriding determination that these people, men and female, that associate with this feminist logic seem to be driving at. And yet, what is it that they excel at, other than making noise and changing the definition of words to suit themselves? And it is in this instance that we see that we have words like intersectionality, where we have patriarchy, and things like this, where again they're trying to change the rules so that now, instead of being able to hold the stick with either hand, you have to have one arm tied behind your back. In order to try and make the game fairer, you've now got to only hold it in the hand that you don't use to write with, your offhand. Anything to try and make it harder for people who would necessarily excel in any given medium to try and make it harder for them, and to try to level this imaginary playing field across all these different sectors so that more people are included. And yet the bottom line is they're included anyway. It isn't the fact that they're excluded, it's the fact that they aren't necessarily willing to put in the time and effort to be the best and the leaders at the top of the field. And I'm not denigrating women here. I apply this equally to both men and women, especially when you start looking at people like Macintosh, because at the end of the day, he is someone who isn't a leader in his field, and he's using this agenda to try and promote a certain belief in the way things should be run, which isn't necessarily the way in which it bears out in reality. And one of the things that I have recently seen which has scared the crap out of me is the way in which we use certain words. Now, misogyny is becoming a word which is becoming a non-word purely because of the way in which it's bandied about every second word, just like patriarchy. But I have recently seen a video by Thunderfoot in which you have a woman claiming that she is raped every time a woman is belittled or shamed in front of her. Now, this worries me intensely, because you have someone here that is turning around and saying, I am raped when my brother makes fun of another woman. Really? You are saying that you are raped when someone is being made fun of. Have you no idea how self-centered and outrageous that statement is on what you are equating with something quite minor? You are taking the most egregious and harmful example of assault that one human being can inflict on another, and you are comparing it to name-calling, you are comparing it to slut-shaming, you are comparing it to these things which, to normal people, can be laughed off, or, if they have an effect, can be overcome reasonably quickly. And this is to say that these things don't cause harm. I'm not saying that they don't. They can cause immeasurable harm, and in my own past, I can show where I have had issues, and it's taken me time and effort to overcome these. But in this particular instance, the fact that this woman has a video where she claims that, oh, when my brother insults someone else's sister, or when my mother calls another girl a slut, that she is raped. If this is the level that we are going to get to try and change society so that people are nicer to each other, is to try and make everything so ridiculously, so it beggars belief at just how self-centered, self-serving, and how dangerous that person is. Because not only does it denigrate the people who are undergoing abuse, which is lesser, not only does it undermine the very use of the word rape, but the word itself is used in a proper legal context, which means that someone has undergone possibly the most outrageous and terrifying ordeal of their life, and you are claiming it for yourself. You are damaged goods. Who wants to be near you? Who is going to want to be around you? And all you're doing is giving yourself more fuel to lay out more of these accusations. But you can't see that it's your actions that change people's perceptions around you. There is this thing called the behaviour cycle. Your attitude has an impact on my attitude, which has an impact on my behaviour, which has an impact on your behaviour, which then impacts your attitude. And it's this big circle. So if you take control of a situation by knowing how the behaviour circle works, you can have someone who is nose to nose with you, foam flecking from their lips as they have an absolute massive rant an inch away from your face. If you are able to hold yourself in such a steady position so that you can then talk them down, so that they calm down, so that whatever it is that they're so worked up about can be addressed. This is the exact opposite of, oh, you've called that girl a name there, you've raped me. Because straight away, that makes my hackles rise. That changes my behaviour. I don't want to listen to what you've got to say anymore. Because to me, that is, well, if you're going to equate this and that, then you're nuts. You're damaged goods. I don't want to know what you've got to say because you're obviously so far off the playing field that you've got no idea what game it is that you're playing, and I just can't be bothered to deal with someone as obviously fucked up as you are. And yet they take that as an example of people not taking them seriously. They'll take that as an example of patriarchy, because I'm a bloke and they're a woman. Or they'll take it as something that then fulfills their desire and fulfills their need. And yet, it's them that perpetuate this cycle purely because of their own worldview. This terrifies me. It absolutely terrifies me. And I now realise that I've been talking for 20 minutes on something I didn't think I'd be able to talk to on 10. So I'm going to end it now. And I thank you for listening. I have, as always, been Voice of the Forge. You can find me on the YouTube channel, Voice of the Forge, or my Twitter handle, @Voice of the Forge. And I hope that you leave comments and feedback on what you'd like me to cover. And I thank you once more for listening to this, the 10th edition of Shooting Straight, and good evening.